Avoid this mistake if you want healthier relationships. We've all been there, pouring our energy into a relationship, hoping things will change, only to feel disappointed when our efforts aren't reciprocated. The truth is, understanding when and how to recognize emotional imbalance is crucial for building meaningful connections. If you've ever found yourself giving more than you're receiving or feeling overlooked, you're not alone. But here's the mistake most of us make. We tolerate these imbalances for far too long, hoping things will improve without addressing the core issues. In this video, we'll dive deep into the subtle signs of disrespect that often go unnoticed in relationships. From dismissed thoughts to the slow erosion of self-worth, we'll explore how to shift from being a passive receiver to an assertive advocate for your own needs. We'll also uncover the power of self-awareness in recognizing your own worth and why it's the key to fostering healthy, fulfilling connections. If you're ready to take control of your relationships and build bonds rooted in mutual respect, stay tuned. Let's start by uncovering the subtle but impactful signs of emotional imbalance, so you can take your relationships to a place where both you and the people in your life are seen, heard, and valued. Number 1. Recognizing emotional imbalance in relationships. At the start of a relationship, everything feels perfect. You smile more often, laugh more deeply, and feel a sense of happiness that seems to lift you. Every text, every call, every conversation is exciting, and you feel connected in a way that is hard to describe. But as time goes on, things shift. Slowly, without even noticing it at first, you begin to feel the imbalance creeping in. It's subtle, a small compromise here, a little sacrifice there. But then one day you realize that the scales have tipped and you're the one giving more, feeling more, and sacrificing more, while the other person seems to be simply receiving. Relationships aren't meant to be transactional, but when one person consistently invests more emotionally than the other, it creates an emotional imbalance. You begin to notice that you're always the one who reaches out first, plans the dates, or makes the effort to resolve conflicts. At first, you brush it off as just a phase, thinking that maybe they're going through something or they're just busy. But over time, the emotional strain starts to wear on you. You find yourself questioning your own value, wondering if you're doing something wrong or if you're just not good enough. Stoicism teaches us that true strength comes from within, not from external validation. Yet when you're stuck in a relationship where the emotional investment is one-sided, it's easy to lose sight of that. You start to feel drained, as if you're pouring all of yourself into a bottomless pit. It's not about grand gestures or huge sacrifices. It's about the everyday moments when you feel like you're carrying the weight of the relationship on your own. Remember a time when you felt truly connected with someone, a friendship, a family member, or even a past relationship. That feeling of mutual support, where both of you were invested, was effortless. It was a dance, with each person taking turns leading and following. You didn't have to question if they cared, because their actions made it clear. Now think back to how you felt during that time. Light, free, and genuinely happy. That's what a balanced relationship should feel like. But when the balance tips too far in one direction, it's as if the dance has lost its rhythm, leaving you stumbling to keep up while the other person stands still. You can't help but wonder, what if it's me? What if I'm the reason the relationship feels off? It's natural to turn the blame inward, but the truth is, it takes two people to maintain balance. Recognizing emotional imbalance is the first step toward reclaiming that sense of mutual connection. And once you see it for what it is, you can't unsee it. The question is, what will you do next? Number 2, the weight of unreciprocated efforts. Imagine this. You've spent the day planning a special evening for someone you care about. You've thought about every detail, what they like, what makes them smile, and how to create a moment that feels meaningful. You show up, excited to share this with them, but when they arrive, something's off. Their excitement doesn't match yours. They seem distracted, indifferent even. As the night unfolds, you can't help but feel the weight of their lack of effort. This feeling, the weight of unreciprocated efforts, is a heavy burden. It's the subtle disappointment of realizing that the energy you put into the relationship isn't being matched. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what is within our control, but when your efforts go unnoticed or unappreciated, it can feel like you're constantly climbing uphill with no support. We've all been there at some point in our lives. Whether it was with a romantic partner, a friend, or even a family member, you give, you show up, you try to be present, and yet it feels like you're running on a treadmill, exerting all this energy without moving forward. You start to wonder if you're expecting too much, but deep down, you know that reciprocity is the foundation of any meaningful relationship. Think back to a time when your efforts were acknowledged, when someone reciprocated your care and attention. Maybe it was a simple gesture, someone remembering your favorite food, or going out of their way to do something special for you. In those moments, you felt seen, valued, and appreciated. Now contrast that with the feeling of putting in effort and receiving nothing in return. The imbalance creates a void, and that void grows the more you continue to invest without receiving anything back. Over time, the weight of unreciprocated efforts can erode your self-worth. You start to question why you're not enough for them to meet you halfway. It's exhausting, emotionally and mentally, to always be the one holding the relationship together. Yet, the fear of letting go keeps you stuck. After all, what if you stop trying and the relationship falls apart completely? This fear often keeps us in relationships long past their expiration date, clinging to the hope that one day they'll realize how much we've done for them and start to give back. But as Stoicism reminds us, we can't control how others behave. We can only control how we respond. When faced with the weight of unreciprocated efforts, the most difficult part is acknowledging that you deserve more than just crumbs. You deserve to be in a relationship where your efforts are met with equal investment. And while that realization can be painful, it also opens the door to seeking connections that are truly fulfilling. Number 3, pivoting towards relationships built on mutual respect. Respect is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship. It's not just about grand gestures or formalities. It's about the everyday actions that show someone values you, listens to you, and treats you as an equal. Yet so many of us find ourselves in relationships where respect is one-sided. You give it freely, but you don't always receive it in return. Think about the relationships in your life where respect is mutual. These are the connections where you feel heard, understood, and valued. You don't have to fight for a place at the table. You're already seated because they make space for you. In these relationships, there's no need to constantly prove your worth because your worth is already acknowledged. There's a sense of ease, a natural give and take, where both parties contribute equally and respect each other's boundaries. Now, contrast that with relationships where respect is lacking. Maybe they don't listen when you speak, or they make decisions without consulting you. Over time, the lack of respect chips away at your sense of self. You start to doubt your voice, your opinions, and even your value in the relationship. It becomes a cycle, one where you keep giving, hoping that one day they'll start to respect you in return, but it never happens. Stoicism teaches us the importance of living in accordance with our values, and one of those values is respect, both for ourselves and others. When you're stuck in a relationship where respect is absent, it's easy to lose sight of that. You start to bend, compromise, and even shrink yourself to fit into their mold, hoping that by doing so, you'll earn their respect. But respect isn't something that can be earned through self-sacrifice. It's something that must be freely given, and if it's not, then it's a sign that the relationship isn't built on a solid foundation. It's difficult to acknowledge when a relationship lacks respect, because it often means facing the reality that you may need to pivot away from it. But once you do, you open yourself up to relationships that are built on mutual respect, where both parties are invested in each other's well-being and growth. Imagine a relationship where respect is at the forefront, where your thoughts, feelings, and boundaries are honored without question. It's not about demanding respect. It's about finding connections where respect is naturally present. These are the relationships that allow you to grow, to thrive, and to become the best version of yourself. And once you've experienced that, you'll wonder why you ever settled for anything less. Number 4, the courage to step away from one-sided connections. At first, leaving a one-sided relationship seems impossible. You've invested so much time, energy, and emotion into this connection that the thought of walking away feels like giving up on a piece of yourself. There's a lingering hope that maybe, just maybe, things will change. Maybe they'll realize how much you've done, how much you've been there for them, and they'll finally start to give back. But with each passing day, it becomes clearer. The change you hope for isn't coming, yet there's a flicker of courage that starts to build inside of you. It begins as a quiet whisper, urging you to value yourself more than the relationship. That courage grows louder as you begin to see the reality of the situation. This connection isn't serving you, and staying is only draining you further. In any relationship, there comes a moment of reckoning, a moment when you have to decide whether continuing to pour your energy into something one-sided is truly worth it. It's not about giving up. It's about recognizing that you deserve mutual care, respect, and effort. The Stoics teach us that our happiness cannot depend on others, that we must find peace within ourselves. But when you're constantly giving to someone who isn't reciprocating, it's nearly impossible to maintain that peace. The imbalance gnaws at your confidence and self-worth. Think back to a time when you felt empowered by your own decisions, a time when you took control of your life, even if it was scary. Maybe it was ending a friendship that no longer felt right, or stepping away from a job that drained your spirit. You felt a sense of freedom afterward, a lightness that came from reclaiming your power. That same feeling awaits you now if you have the courage to step away from one-sided connections. It's not easy. There will be moments of doubt, wondering if you made the right choice. You may even feel guilty for leaving, as if you abandoned someone who needed you. But in reality, a healthy relationship should never make you feel like your presence is required to keep it alive. It should thrive on mutual support and effort. When you step away from a one-sided relationship, you're not just walking away from them, you're stepping toward yourself. You can't help but wonder what life will be like after you leave. Will you find someone who values you the way you deserve? Will you be happier on your own? These are the questions that stir curiosity and excitement, reminding you that life holds more for you than the imbalance you've been enduring. Number 5, seeking sincerity, the foundation of genuine bonds. Sincerity. It's such a simple word, yet it holds the key to every meaningful relationship. At its core, sincerity means showing up as your authentic self and allowing others to do the same. It means being honest about your feelings, desires, and boundaries, without fear of judgment or rejection. In a world full of superficial connections, sincerity is a breath of fresh air. It's what we crave in our deepest relationships, but it's also what many of us find difficult to cultivate. When you reflect on your closest relationships, think about the moments that strengthened them. It wasn't the surface-level interactions or the pleasantries. It was the raw, unfiltered moments of vulnerability, when someone opened up to you about their struggles, or when you shared something deeply personal and were met with understanding. These moments of sincerity are what build trust and create the foundation for genuine bonds. But in many relationships, sincerity is replaced by pretense. You find yourself walking on eggshells, afraid to say what you really think or feel because you're unsure how the other person will react. You hold back, trying to maintain the peace or avoid conflict. Over time, this erodes the authenticity of the relationship, leaving you feeling disconnected and unfulfilled. Think back to a time when you were truly yourself with someone, when you didn't have to put on a mask or pretend to be something you're not. That feeling of being seen and accepted for who you are is one of the most liberating experiences. Now imagine that being the norm in all your relationships, where sincerity is the foundation, not the exception. Stoicism reminds us to value truth and authenticity, not only with others, but with ourselves. It's easy to get caught up in trying to be what others want us to be, but true freedom comes from living in alignment with our values and being sincere in our interactions. When you seek sincerity in relationships, you invite deeper connections. You open the door for genuine understanding and mutual respect. You might start to wonder what it would be like to have more relationships built on this kind of sincerity. How would your life change if every bond you formed was rooted in authenticity? The curiosity that follows is a natural progression. What new doors could open if you committed to seeking and fostering sincere connections? Number 6, navigating the maze of disrespect in relationships. Disrespect in a relationship doesn't always come in the form of blatant insults or aggressive behavior. More often, it's subtle, like being dismissed in a conversation, having your opinions minimized, or feeling invisible when your needs are ignored. It's the small slights that, over time, accumulate into a pattern of disregard. Navigating this maze of disrespect can be confusing because, in many cases, the signs are so subtle that you begin to doubt yourself. You wonder if you're overreacting or being too sensitive. Maybe they didn't mean it that way, you tell yourself. But the truth is, disrespect, in any form, is a reflection of how someone values you or doesn't. The difficulty lies in recognizing these signs early and addressing them before they become ingrained in the relationship. We've all experienced moments where we felt disrespected, whether it was a friend interrupting us constantly, a partner disregarding our feelings, or even a family member who refused to acknowledge our efforts. In these moments, there's a sting, a sharp reminder that our value isn't being recognized. And while it's easy to brush these moments off as isolated incidents, when they become a pattern, they reveal a deeper issue. Stoicism teaches us to respond to disrespect with calm assertiveness, to not let the actions of others disrupt our inner peace, but that doesn't mean we should tolerate it. Part of maintaining our dignity is recognizing when someone consistently fails to treat us with respect and having the courage to either address it or walk away. Think about a time when you stood up for yourself in the face of disrespect. It might have been uncomfortable, but afterward, you felt empowered. You reclaimed your worth and set a boundary. Now, contrast that with the times you allowed disrespect to slide, telling yourself it wasn't a big deal. Over time, those moments build up, and the maze of disrespect becomes harder to navigate. You may find yourself reflecting on current relationships and wondering if you've been too tolerant of disrespect. Are there patterns you've ignored because they seemed minor at first? This realization can stir a sense of curiosity. What would it be like to be in relationships where respect is a given, not something you have to fight for? How would your interactions change if you no longer tolerated even the smallest forms of disregard? The path forward is clear. You have the power to navigate this maze, to set boundaries, and to seek relationships where respect is mutual. And once you do, the doors to deeper, more fulfilling connections will open wide. Number 7. The subtle signs of disregard, dismissed thoughts and overlooked needs. At the start of a relationship, everything often feels bright and full of promise. Conversations flow effortlessly, your ideas are heard, and there's a shared excitement in getting to know one another. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things begin to shift. You notice that your thoughts are dismissed more often, your needs overlooked, and the conversations that once felt so mutual now seem one-sided. The words, "I didn't realize that was important to you," or "you're overthinking it," become more common. It's not always said outright, but the feeling of being unseen is unmistakable. It's easy to ignore these small instances, to brush them off as simple misunderstandings. After all, no relationship is perfect, right? But when these dismissals become a pattern, it's no longer about simple miscommunication. It's about a deeper disregard for who you are and what you bring to the relationship. The more it happens, the more you begin to shrink, doubting whether your thoughts, your feelings, and your needs truly matter. Think back to a time when you felt fully heard and valued. Perhaps in a friendship, a family relationship, or a partnership. There's a warmth that comes from knowing that someone genuinely cares about what you have to say, that your needs are considered just as important as their own. You didn't have to fight to be heard, and you certainly didn't have to convince anyone that your feelings were valid. It was natural, mutual, and balanced. Now, compare that to the moments when you felt dismissed, when your concerns were minimized, when your thoughts were waved off as insignificant. Over time, these subtle signs of disregard take a toll on your confidence and self-worth. You start to question whether you're asking for too much, whether you're being too demanding. But deep down you know the truth. Mutual respect shouldn't have to be begged for. As you reflect on this, a sense of nostalgia may rise for those past relationships where you were fully seen, where your needs weren't just met but cherished. These are the connections that left an imprint on your heart, and they remind you of what true respect looks like. The question that lingers is, what now? How do you reclaim your voice in relationships where you feel overlooked? This curiosity stirs within you, urging you to take action, to start honoring your own needs as much as you honor others. There's power in recognizing the subtle signs of disregard, and even more power in deciding to no longer tolerate them. Number 8, the power of self-awareness in addressing disrespect. It's often said that awareness is the first step to change. In relationships, self-awareness can be the difference between enduring disrespect and confidently standing up for yourself. But becoming self-aware isn't always easy. It requires you to pause and take an honest look at how you've been treated and how you've allowed yourself to be treated. It asks you to reflect on the patterns in your relationships and to recognize where you may have ignored your own needs in favor of keeping the peace. The Stoics remind us that we must know ourselves deeply if we are to live in alignment with our values. This self-awareness is not just about understanding our strengths, but also about confronting the ways we've accepted less than we deserve. In relationships, it's easy to overlook moments of disrespect, especially if they come from someone we care about. We justify their behavior, we make excuses, and we tell ourselves that it's not a big deal. But every time we brush off these moments, we lose a little bit of our self-respect. Self-awareness is the key to breaking this cycle. When you're aware of your worth, you stop tolerating anything that diminishes it. You become attuned to the subtle ways disrespect shows up, and instead of internalizing it, you address it. This doesn't mean lashing out or reacting with anger. It means calmly, confidently, and assertively standing up for yourself. Think back to a time when you became aware of something that wasn't serving you. Maybe it was a toxic habit, a negative mindset, or even a relationship that wasn't healthy. The moment you became aware of it, something shifted. You could no longer ignore it, and that awareness spurred you into action. The same is true in relationships. Once you become aware of the disrespect you've been tolerating, you can no longer accept it. There's something deeply empowering about this level of self-awareness. It reminds you of your own strength and your ability to shape your life in a way that honors your worth. You might feel a sense of nostalgia for past moments when you stood up for yourself, when you recognized your value and acted accordingly. Those moments were pivotal in your journey, and they serve as a reminder that you have the power to do so again. As you sit with this awareness, a curiosity begins to emerge. What would your relationships look like if you fully embrace this self-awareness? How would your connections change if you no longer allowed disrespect to go unaddressed? These are the questions that lead you forward, encouraging you to explore the boundaries of your self-worth and to redefine what you will and won't accept in your relationships. Number 9, understanding your worth. The key to healthy relationships. At the heart of every healthy relationship is a deep understanding of your own worth. It's the foundation upon which mutual respect, trust, and love are built. But understanding your worth isn't always easy. In a world that constantly tells us we need to be more successful, more attractive, more accomplished, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that who we are, as we are, is enough. When you don't fully grasp your own worth, you're more likely to settle for relationships that don't serve you. You tolerate disrespect, you compromise your boundaries, and you give more than you receive, all because you believe that's the best you can hope for. But the truth is, the relationships that bring us the most joy and fulfillment are the ones where we are valued for who we are, not for what we can provide. Think about the relationships in your life where you feel truly valued. Maybe it's a friend who always makes time for you, a partner who listens without judgment, or a family member who supports you unconditionally. In these relationships, there's an ease, a flow, because you know that your worth is recognized and honored. You don't have to prove yourself or constantly seek validation. You are enough, just as you are. Now contrast that with relationships where you feel undervalued. These are the connections that drain your energy, where you find yourself constantly giving without receiving. It's in these relationships that your worth feels diminished, and over time you begin to believe that you're not worthy of more. But you are. You always have been. The Stoics teach us that our value is intrinsic. It comes from within and is not dependent on external validation. When you fully understand your worth, you attract relationships that reflect that understanding. You set boundaries, you communicate your needs, and you don't settle for anything less than mutual respect. Think back to a time when you truly understood your worth, when you walked away from a situation or a relationship that wasn't serving you. There's a sense of empowerment in those moments, a reminder that you deserve to be treated with the same respect and care that you give to others. As you reflect on this, a sense of nostalgia may rise, taking you back to those pivotal moments when you stood firm in your worth. The curiosity that follows is natural. What would your life look like if every relationship you had honored your worth? How would you feel if you no longer accepted anything less than mutual respect and care? These questions stir something within you, inviting you to explore the possibilities of living fully in your worth, of attracting relationships that reflect the deep respect you have for yourself. As we wrap up, remember that recognizing emotional imbalance and standing up for your self-worth are not just acts of self-care, they are necessary steps toward cultivating meaningful, genuine connections. It's about setting boundaries, asserting your value, and seeking relationships that honor mutual respect. You deserve to be in spaces where your thoughts are heard and your feelings are valued. The road to healthy relationships starts with self-awareness and the courage to pivot when necessary. If you've made it this far, drop 100 in the comments to show you're part of that rare 0.01% who finish what they start. You're already on the path to meaningful change. If you're serious about transforming your life and relationships, make sure to subscribe to our channel and join a community that's committed to growth and self-improvement. Keep striving for better because you deserve it.